Good evening, Erev Tov. Many years ago, when I was a young lecturer at Bar Ilan, I was told one day that they opened the Department of Criminology at the university. So I asked, what does criminology mean? So they told me it's a study of crime. I said, oh, I didn't know that there is such a science, and is it really necessary? By now, I know that the Department of Criminology is 10 times bigger than the Department of Bible. And that it is probably more important for the Israeli society. Only later I realized that the Torah takes criminology very seriously and devotes its 4th chapter of the book of Reshit to criminology. So I called this 3rd lecture of mine, Am I My Brother's Keeper? And an Autonomy of Fratricide. Quite difficult to pronounce this English words. Anyway, it's really a chapter of biblical criminology. Why are we so bad? Why do we have such a strong murderous inclination? Why do we hear every day on the radio that husbands slice the throats of their wives? Slash. Well, why is it so? This is the theme of our study today. And may I read a few verses in Hebrew. והאדם ידע את חווה אשתו, ותהר ותלד את קין, ותאמר קניתי איש את אדוני. There is a discussion between Rashi and other commentators whether there were sexual relations in Gan Eden. And Rashi explains this first verse as past perfect. It means, and Adam knew his wife before in Gan Eden, and now she gives birth to Cain. But but others, and I among them, believe that this is a statement of what happens now after the expulsion from Eden. May I add only one word, one sentence to what we said last week. In English, you don't speak about the expulsion from paradise, you speak about the fall. And this is absolutely impossible in Hebrew. Not that you cannot say Nephilah, but the Hebrew language, by which I mean the sages and the philosophers, never think about falling from a high degree to a low one, which has to be corrected by Jesus, who redeems man from the original sin. This is the Christian approach. The Jewish approach is that you are actually on the same level as I try to say, you are expelled, but I believe that we even are on a higher level. So now we have sexual relations, now we have economic responsibility, now we have the consciousness of death, and we have creativity, which is perhaps the most important sign of our existence outside of Eden. So I, not as Rashi, believe that this cannot mean that this happened in paradise, because in paradise they were naked and they were not ashamed of being naked. Right? So men, I read now in the translation of Alter, and the human knew Eve, his woman, and she conceived and bore Cain, and she said, I have got me a man with the Lord. So the beauty of the Hebrew language, that you call sexual intercourse with the word to know a wife, or a wife knows her husband, which is a very beautiful corporal and spiritual experience. So I don't have to explain this. And the human knew Eve, his woman, and she conceived. In Hebrew it says, and she became pregnant and bore Cain, and she said, Kaniti ish et Hashem. Cain, Kaniti, this is a pun. She explains why she gave to her firstborn the name of Cain, and she said, I have, Kaniti means in Hebrew, I have bought. But in biblical Hebrew, to create and to buy are synonymous, which means you get something either by buying it or by creating it. So she for sure did not buy her son, but she created her son together with God. Kaniti ish et Hashem. I hate when people say on the radio, we decided to make a second child. And you decided to make a second child. So Chava was on a higher level of understanding. She's very, very proud that she is the companion of God in the creation of the first natural person. Adam and Eve were created by God, and now she creates together with God the first natural person. And she calls him Cain, which means the word of creation, the name of creation. This is a hymn for motherhood. She's so elated by the experience that she who has been, you say in Hebrew, you usually don't use the word ish for a child. And she says, I have created a person with the help of God. Where does she use the word ish? It's the only place in the whole Bible that a child is called ish. And the professor was at Brandeis, Nahum Sarna, who wrote a very beautiful commentary to the book of Breshit, said that this is a connection with the verse that she was created, Ki me'ish lukach hazot, she was created from the rib of a person. Now she says, yes, I was created from your rib, but I'm able to make an ish. So whoever thinks that this is that men and women, man and wife are not equal in the Torah, you see that they are really equal, because she uses the word ish, and she does now something which her husband cannot do, to give life to another human being. So this is a wonderful background for a story of murder. No, I'm not humorous, I'm very serious, dead serious. The story starts wonderfully, that this boy will be murdered by his brother, which means that all this elation of the mother will be thrown to the ground. This is a seriousness, excuse me?
Cain is the murderer.
Cain is a murderer, yes.
Right.
All right, yes, he will be the murderer, right, thank you. He will be the murderer. He won't be murdered, he will be the murderer. That's very true. All right, verse 2. And she bore as well his brother, Abel, and Abel became a herder of sheep, while Cain was a tiller of the soil. You excuse me for using the Hebrew terms, because they will never turn their head if they hear the Abel or something like this. So their names, we use the Hebrew words, Abel. So this is very touching from the literary point of view. The first birth is a wonderful occasion. And the second birth is a case of habit. Could you believe this? I read this second that you see the greatness of the Torah by its reality. The firstborn, this happens only once. Right? So the second verse is so prosaic. And it says, and she bore as well his brother. No pregnancy, no intercourse, only effect of birth of the second one as well. And she doesn't even explain his name. Now all of you know that Hevel means vapor or breath, which means something which evades, which evaporates immediately, right? We go in the cold and we have vapor comes out of our mouth, in a minute it doesn't exist anymore. So everybody understands that Hevel is a very apt name for a person whose life evaporated, right? But in Yiddish you have an expression, what is the fault of the bride? That she is too beautiful. Think about it, laugh about it. What is the only failure of the bride? That she's too beautiful.
The color is too shame.
The color is too shame. Now the same is about this explanation. It's too good an explanation, because how could she know when the child was born that his life will be short and that he will be murdered? So we don't like explanations which are too good. Right? So what should we say? Should we say that she was a prophet? No. Should we say that she gave him another name? And this is only a retrospective statement. Eventually he was called Hevel because his life evaporated. Which also is not so nice as an explanation. Because the text doesn't tell us that this is retroactive, right? So I have another suggestion. In the Bible you have names which have a double meaning. So whenever I have this difficulty, and we have this difficulty quite often in the whole Bible, so I look for another meaning for the name, and then I say she meant the first meaning, but eventually it became a second meaning. So in Syriac, which is one of the Aramaic languages, Habla means shepherd. And but this also means that she is a prophetess in a way, right? So we have, I think about it only now, we have the same problem, but not so dramatically as the other solution. Anyway, maybe that Hevel actually means that she designated him to be a shepherd, and eventually it turned out that he was also short life, had a short life. Anyway, this is the beginning of the story, and now we get another piece of information that they divided the world among them. Bakasha?
Habla in Arabic means pregnant.
Pregnant?
Yeah.
Habla. This is after pregnancy, so we have and you see, Abel became a shepherd, and Cain, like his father, was a tiller of the soil. And now it happened in the course of time that Cain brought from the fruit of the soil an offering to the Lord, and Hevel too had brought from the choice firstlings of his flock, and the Lord regarded Hevel and his offering, but he did not regard Cain and his offering. And Cain was very incensed, and his face fell, Here you have the drama. What is so important, if people ask me, why do you love the Bible so much? I say, because it is true. But I don't mean what they hear. I mean it's true to life. People are not depicted as black and white. The founder of religion is the first murderer. What a paradox. It is Cain who brings the first sacrifice. It is Cain who is so similar to his mother who understands